Welcome to the last video in section 7.7. This is multiplying polynomials. Here is an example problem. So we'll work our way through that so we can look at what we're talking about. So with multiplying polynomials, when you learn with binomials, we could essentially say x plus 3 times x plus 2, and we could do the FOIL method. So we could make sure that we multiplied the inside stuff, we multiplied the outside stuff, the inside stuff, and all that sort of stuff. So we can multiply each one of these terms by everything to make sure everything was well taken care of. Actually, my example that I just did was completely wrong. But we could still multiply everything and we could multiply the first term by both the terms in the second equation and the last term in the first equation to everything else and get everything multiplied out. Well, when you have a polynomial that has 3 terms, this is how you can potentially deal with it. I want you to think, I hate to say, I want you to think kind of lattice here. You know me, I do not like lattice. However, we can think a little latticey here and see how this all works. So I'm going to take this second equation and I'm going to create essentially a rectangle out of all of this. My second equation, if you notice, I just put a -6 because this is -6. I can rewrite this as plus a negative. So this 6 is now a -6. And I also did the same thing with the smaller equation. I put that down on the vertical aspect of this rectangle. And then from there we can actually do the math work. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see just this rectangle here. All right, so on here we can do the math. We have 2x squared and we're multiplying that by 5x. So really we have 2, oops, let's do that in the right color. 2 times 5 times x squared times x. So we can do all that math work and we have 10x to the third for that box. Our next box over, if we go over to the right one box, we have 10x times 5x, and that multiplies out to be 10 times 5 times x times x. So that ends up being 50x squared. Our next box over, we can say -6 times 5x. So -6 times 5 is -30x. Let's go down and do another box. We're going to go down to the bottom left-hand corner. We got 2x squared times 3, which is essentially 2 times 3 times x squared, or 6x squared. Awesome. Next one, we have 10x times 3, or 10 times 3 times x, or, oops, wrote that wrong. 10 times 3 is 30x. Cool. And our very last box, we have -6 times +3, or -18. So then from there, we can actually take this information and we can actually rewrite this whole equation. So we can rewrite it as, okay, so we can rewrite this as 10x to the third plus 50x squared. And then we have another, I'm just going to check off these boxes as I do them. I have 6x squared, then I have plus a -30x, plus +30x, and then -18. So in all reality, we can then combine like terms. So we have 10x to the third. 50x squared plus 6x squared equals 56x squared. These, -30x plus a +30x, those just cancel out, and then we have our final number of -18. So that is our final answer for this huge problem right up here. Awesome. Now for the remainder of this video, I'm going to show you one other way that you can actually solve this same exact problem, but it gets a little more messy. This is essentially looking at this problem through the eyes of the distributive property. So we would essentially say 5x is going to multiply the 2x squared, it's going to multiply the 10x, and it's going to multiply the negative 6. As well, the 3 is going to multiply the 2x squared, it's going to multiply the 10x, and it's going to multiply the negative 6. So this is the distributive property way. So this could essentially be rewritten as 5x times 2x squared plus 10x minus 6 plus 3 times 2x squared plus 10x minus 6. And then from there we're doing the distributive property with the 5x. So we have, bear with me, 5x times 2x squared plus 5x times 10x plus 5x times a negative 6. And now let's continue through and do 3 times 2x squared, and then plus 3 times 10x plus 3 times a negative 6, losing space here. All right, now let's do the math. 5x times 2x squared, that is 10x to the third. Then we have 5x times 10x, which is 50x squared. And then 5x times a negative 6, which is negative 30x. Oops, that's not a 30, that's a 3. Negative 30x. And then we have 3 times 2x squared, which is 6x squared. And then we have 3 times 10x, which is 30x. And then last but not least, we have 3 times a negative 6, which is negative 18. So combine like terms. We have a like term here and a like term here. So we have 10x to the third, and we have two like terms of 50x squared plus 6x squared, which is 56x squared. Then negative 30x plus 30x. That's what that should be. Negative 30x plus 30x equals 0x. And last but not least, we have negative 18. So this can all be rewritten without that 0 in there. So we have 10x to the third plus 56x squared minus 18. So there's our final answer, and that should be the exact same final answer as before. So there's two different ways to do this. I feel like the rectangle method is the easiest, especially for those people who know the lattice multiplication, just because it's the same sort of format. But if you like the distributive property and you really want to test your skills, you could also do the distributive property method. The problem with this is you need to be as accurate as possible with your positive and negative numbers and your multiplication, as well as your exponent properties. You have to be perfect with them to make the distributive property work to your advantage. Thanks for listening.